Welcome back to POA Talks. I'm your host with my co-host, Garen Stanley. We are really looking forward to sharing with you today. Our goal is to help you get better 30 minutes at a time, and we really appreciate the feedback and the connections that we've made just in these last few podcasts since we've started.
So.
It's been super encouraging, the comments we've read, text messages we've received, emails we've received. So if you're enjoying this, if you would do us a favor and like, share, subscribe, send it to someone you think that could benefit from it, we would appreciate it a lot. Recently, Garen, I came across an animal that has captured my attention.
Okay.
It's called a tardigrade.
Okay.
Something like that. Tardigrade, I believe. Tardigrade. It's cool. So it can live. It's considered the most resilient animal on the planet.
That's cool.
It can live, get this, and I would be cranky if this happened to me. It can live up to 30 years without food or water.
Talk about hangry.
Can you imagine how hangry I would be 30 years without food or water? They actually have pets. People have them as pets. And
I'm going to have to Google this.
Yeah, it's awesome. They can live in crazy hostile environments, temperatures up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So that would be another reason for me to be very upset. But it captured my attention at what a tardigrade, how it can survive and even in most cases thrive in super difficult situations, which is kind of what we are wanting to talk about today.
Yeah. So if we're talking about resilience, that's definitely the definition of resilience.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. People want to know what resilience means. It's able to go 30 years without food and water.
Google tardigrade. That's it.
To me, resilience is the ability to recover quickly in a hostile environment or an adverse situation where you have the capacity in a moment that's not comfortable for you. Your resilience allows you to not collapse or to go into a funk or, fall off the bandwagon, those types of things. That is what resilience is to me, the capacity or the ability to thrive as does the tardigrade in a hostile environment.
You know, I think about whenever you start talking about resilience and kind of the idea behind it to put maybe some biblical understanding. I love the scripture whenever you start reading Haggai, which is just a phenomenal read and study. You see this same resilience because in context of what's happening here, you step into a story where Solomon's temple, obviously, if you know anything about Scripture, it was the most glorious temple to date in history. I forget the estimated, but I believe it's in the billions of dollars worth that they whenever they started talking about how much it was worth. And so you see this massive temple, and then it gets destroyed by Babylon in about 587 BC, somewhere around in there. And then Haggai steps into the scene. He has this desire to go and rebuild the temple, and you kind of see that really amazing moment in time where they start trying to do this, but yet they face discouragement.
Sure.
So they have to really figure out a way to overcome, like, hey, what do we do? So within a month, they all go there and start trying to rebuild the temple. They get the foundation laid, they get the altar made, and then they face some adversity. And what do? They walk away. They quit.
Right.
So I love that context of what they're doing there. But the cool thing about what God steps in, he says, be strong and do the work. He said they're trying to figure out, like, what do we do at this point? Like, how do we overcome this? How do we build resilience? Like, what is it? He said, hey, be strong and do the work. So I love that.
So they're in a hostile environment.
Most definitely, yeah.
And I like to look at it as the Haggai principle. They're in a hostile environment. The word of the Lord or the Spirit of the Lord moves into their situation.
Yeah.
And their ability, if you want to you look at it that way, is in definite question. But then the word of the Lord comes to them in that environment to be strong. To me, it's amazing that who he speaks to, and I'll let you address that, because obviously here our organization is a very spiritual organization. We are centered and founded on strong values that we receive from the word of the Lord, the Bible. We think the Bible is our anchor in our organization. But I believe there's a principle not only in our organization as a religious entity, but for any one of you that are watching or may be involved in another type of organization, this principle that you're about to allude to is incredible across the board on resilience in who he speaks to and encourages to be strong.
Yeah, so he speaks to three different people, three different groups. So first he says, he gives the word of the Lord. He said the word of the Lord spoke to Joshua, the governor. So there's the political party. Zerubbabel, yeah. So he said, hey, here's the word of the Lord. So here's the word, and he's in the government.
Correct.
So then second, he gives the word to Joshua. So then he follows up.
And Joshua is the
Joshua is the priest of the people. So now he's in the religious world.
Correct.
And then the third one is he gives it to the family. He gives it to the people. And so that's regardless of what level you find yourself, the word of the Lord was the same.
It's
which
incredible.
Is super encouraging to me, that it wasn't a different word for different levels or different statuses. It was simply be strong and do the work. And then he follows up with why can you be strong and do the work? He said, because the Lord your God is with you. So he's not asking you to do something that you can't. He's saying, I'm with you to do this thing. And so whenever you have that word and you have that confidence, you have the ability to step into those and find the resilience.
Right. So what that speaks to me, or what that's telling me, is number one, the word of the Lord came to him, or the answer in a hostile environment came. And then accompanying that was his presence.
Absolutely.
Which is, you always want the presence of the Lord.
Absolutely.
But then he tells them, if you're strong, my word is going to be a strong word, to be strong. And then if you will be strong, my presence is with you, which will allow fear to not happen. So fear is an emotion. So, and I think a lot of people many times are led by emotion.
No doubt.
And then resilience follows. But if we can reorder that and allow resilience to lead,
I love that,
then our emotions will follow.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, if our resilience leads our emotion, most of the time we'll make the correct choice in a hostile situation, in a discomforting situation. If we have resilience, which comes from the principle that's given to us in Haggai, to be strong, that's not easy at all times.
Not at all.
To acknowledge that the presence or the Spirit of the Lord is with us at any level, in a political level, or in a business environment, if you want to say it that way, in a religious environment, so on a church level, and then even on a family level, if we can be strong and not fear, the outcome is going to be beautiful. They're in a hostile environment. It wasn't an easy environment for them.
Which is encouraging, because the word of the Lord can still get to you even in a hostile environment.
Yeah, in any situation. And the word of the Lord is life.
Yeah.
So, most people want and love to say, the thief doesn't give us life. He steals, he kills, he destroys. But I've come to give abundant life. Most people want the abundant life, but the resilience is the key to having that abundant life.
So would you I feel like you're almost alluding to it, would you say that resilience is a choice that you make?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely resilience is a choice that you have to make. Now, I do think there's levels of resilience or maturity in resilience. There's situations throughout my life that I've gone through that I responded differently then than I would today, just because of the maturity level or the building of the resilience. But I've noticed when I started allowing or making the decision to be resilient in a difficult environment, my emotions followed that, thankfully.
Yeah.
but my resilience was built. So definitely resilience is a choice. I think it's so important that we acknowledge that resilience can't be taken from you.
Yeah, that's good.
In any environment, you're decide, you're in control, and you decide how I'm going to respond to this. So think about that from the Haggai principle side of things, from Zerubbabel as the governor, trying to identify how I'm going to lead in this organization, lead my people, lead the culture I'm in.
Yeah.
He has to make this decision. The same thing with Joshua, the priest. The same thing when he says, I spoke to the people. They had to make a decision. To me, it's an incredible principle from the word of the Lord, speaking to all levels of an unfriendly environment, of, if you want to say this way, being held hostage. They were under captivity. They have, the principle starts with how many of you remember. And that's dangerous.
Yeah, he said, how many of you remember the former
how
glory?
It used to be.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous because if we're not resilient, well, that's just how it used to be. Can we ever get back there?
Yeah.
I don't know that we can.
You fall into the comparison trap almost.
Right, yeah. Which is huge.
Yeah.
And you see that probably more prevalent in student ministry.
Yeah, absolutely.
The danger of comparison. Yeah. But it's because their emotions are funneling their choices
instead
versus their resilience. Yeah.
I love that. One thing I've noticed just from life in general, if you forfeit this is crazy moments, you almost you run the risk of losing this is awesome moments. Because
I like that.
You find yourself in this position of like, I don't want to try again. I don't want to go again. I don't want to run the risk of losing what I have versus over a hope of what I could get.
Yeah.
Which is the same situation that they're in. They ran the risk. What if they fail? What if it never works out? What if they can't rebuild the temple?
And in a sense, they did. They gave up.
They walked away.
Away.
Yeah. And, for me, some of my backstory, which you probably, you know most of this, for my journey getting into student ministry, I don't come from the church world. I actually got hired from a Fortune 500 company where our company was rated number one about 7 or 8 years in a row of being the number one company to sell for. They treated their employees exceptionally well. And so
you hit metrics that were way up high.
We did well, and I'm thankful for that.
I'm saying you personally did.
Yes, sir, we did. We did well, and the company did well, and they're still a phenomenal company. But for me personally, I had always felt the call from God that I was supposed to student pastor. And so, which definitely,
I think I know where you're going.
Which led me to a conversation with you, actually, where the opportunity was presenting itself here. And then I also had some opportunities for promotion where I was.
Big opportunity.
That was kind of a challenge there, which obviously leaving a Fortune 500 company with company car, company benefits, things like that, you've run the risk of forfeiting all of that to pursue a call. And so I sat down with you in the truck and I was like, hey man, so like this is the deal. Like, what do we do? And I'll never forget your response, So I just like poured my heart out to him,
Not one of my leading moments.
I'm just like, I'm feeling it. And so I look over and I'm like, so Drew, what do I do? And so the response was epic. He said, hey bud, you'll make the right choice. I mean, I just spent 15 minutes like pouring my heart out, and I'm thinking like he's about to drop some massive wisdom on me.
Yeah.
And then the response I get is, "You'll make the right choice." So, which ultimately did force me into a situation to go back to what I knew the word of the Lord came to me and said, which was be strong and do the work. And now I have been able to experience this is awesome moments because I didn't forfeit this is crazy. To my employer, whenever I told them what I was going to do, that's what they said was, this is crazy. Like, Why would you do that? However, I knew what the word of the Lord was to me, and now I continually experience this is awesome moments. So,
yeah, and I think even later, quite a few years later, we had another conversation to where, fortunately, that time I was a much better friend and confidant. But where we had a very strong conversation in which I encouraged you, because you were making another life decision, you have to know the word of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think I was able to lend into you at that point because of the resilience you had shown in earlier experience, even though I completely botched it as a friend. So if you need a word of encouragement, just you'll make the right choice.
You'll make the right choice.
You're getting a hands-on lesson on resilience.
But I also think that was kind of following the levels of resiliency, which what you brought up earlier was you feel like there's levels of resilience, and which every time you level, it may run, you have to risk a little bit more, because really in reality, if you're not willing to risk your reputation for God's, then I don't know that you can ever experience the level that God has for you. I think you run that risk for sure.
Yeah. We could all look at situations and circumstances, choices probably that not proud of, could have done better. But when we allowed, again, the resilience at any level to dictate our emotion, I think it just becomes much more healthy for us.
Definitely, yeah.
I think there's a strong influence in our world today, and we're seeing it on all kinds of different levels, even now where they've come out with this term quiet quitting. So people are still showing up. People are still going through the motions, if you want to say it that way, which I don't think is a strong form of resilience. I think that is a whole different conversation. Yeah. But we're seeing in our culture today across the board in organizations, I know some of you listening or watching or in attendance are experiencing at some level the lack of resilience in our world, organizationally, in the church environment, unfortunately, even in families. A massive situation happens and we panic.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, get knocked off course. I think it's important that we begin to put some things in us, or how do we address resilience, or how do we implement resilience? Those type questions need to just be answered now before the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, our emotions are going to rule.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like how do we introduce steps or processes, or how do we implement resilience into our everyday maturity?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. For me personally, I have lived by the Haggai principle of, one, making sure that I'm hearing the word of God for my life, for my family. And then the one challenge I think you have to overcome is the bait of comparing your start with someone else's finish. Whenever you look at where you're starting, I mean, the day you start a diet, they're going to put double stuffed Oreos on sale.
Absolutely.
So like that, it's going to be easy. And like you go on a full on kale diet and you gain 2 pounds. It's like, this isn't working. Like I just want to quit. And so, but what you have to try to do is choose the hard right over the easy wrong, in my opinion.
All right, let me lean in on you there. Say that again.
So
choose the hard right
over the easy
wrong.
There's always going to be the bait of following the path of least resistance. So when you make the choice, resilience is a choice. So whenever you're choosing, just show up. Continue to show up to the gym even though you gain 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Like choose to eat right even though your body isn't showing the signs of it getting better. Choose the healthy option because it's the hard right. You could choose the easy wrong, but you're going to stay in that vicious cycle. So what I try to do is you make the choice. You just continue. You just show up. If you're in a bad relationship and your spouse isn't showing you the respect that you feel like you deserve, continue showing respect.
Yeah.
Continue leaning into that. Continue being honorable, even though the person over you isn't really honor worthy. You continue showing that and being it and doing the right thing, choosing that hard right over the easy wrong. And over time, it's brick by brick, it's stone by stone, it's choice by choice, day by day. Every single opportunity you get to choose the right.
And if you disagree, obviously chip in. But I think the initial extremely difficult choice being made over and over and over becomes a very lifestyle change to where that choice 3 months from now, you don't even there's no energy involved in it if you even have to make the choice, because eventually
it becomes a habit.
The resilience builds up, the capacity to overcome, and that difficult. I mean, if you put a glass of icy milk and 12 cookies in front of me, it's gone. That choice is crazy difficult. But other situations I can overcome. But that glass of milk and cookies is still, the emotion is still getting me.
They still taste good. Craig Rochelle, he's an author and he puts out, he has a phenomenal podcast. Those of you that are looking for another podcast, he does a phenomenal podcast. But one of the things that he says is that successful people do consistently what average people do occasionally. And that's what separates the two, is that successful people are doing what others are doing, but they're doing it consistently. And I think that's a huge building block for your life if you want to make changes, even though, and that's the challenge, is like on January 1st, the gyms are packed.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody's got a New Year's resolution.
It's a ghost town today.
Yeah, but like as time goes on, you see them fall off. But doing the right thing, even though it doesn't feel good, is still the right thing. And so you choose to do the right thing.
Always do the right thing.
And so through doing the right thing, right things will end up happening. Which is a principle I try to live by.
And I think it's important that we allow voices in our life to help us implement doing the right thing. So strong. That's not for today, but just something that has helped me is just make sure that right voice is there. And I tend to think, well, what would this person do? When I'm making in a hostile environment, when 12 cookies and milk are in front of me, what would, and I interject,
the most
they do.
Person
right, exactly. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. We've touched on resilience, and I think our encouragement is across the board to organization, to church,
to church leaders,
leaders, to family, to be resilient. There are situations where, or let me ask it this way, are there situations where it's okay to walk away?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because obviously if you're listening or watching today, you're probably thinking, yeah, but you don't know my situation. And the answer to that would be, every situation, that question plays, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are most definitely things or times or seasons or places that it is time to walk away. But I would say when your core values don't align, then I think that's the opportunities that you do need to walk away from, or that's the places that you do need to walk away from.
Yeah. So, what I'm hearing you say is when it's a core value, don't feel guilty for getting out of the environment.
If it's a
getting out of the
non-negotiable,
situation. Yeah.
if it's something that is settled in your life, settled in your mind, settled in your spirit, as a Christian, if there's certain things that you are not willing to move on, and those things are very, very important to you, and where you are currently or the relationship you're in currently, if those values with those people or these places don't align, then those are the exceptions to the rule of being resilient. You don't want to stay in a toxic place. You don't want to stay in a place where there is no work being done, there is no help being facilitated for you.
And I think that even goes across the board, organizationally, in a business environment. We've seen certain brands, familiar brands, be resilient in crazy hostile environments because of their values.
Right.
We could go through those and talk about those. We don't have time, but very, very strong companies, their values dictated whether they were going to stay with their decision
or go different
or restructure.
Yeah.
And we've seen strong companies, one particular brand's coming in mind where they got away from their values, realized it was a mistake, and came back to it.
Right. Yeah.
So, on the flip side, it is okay to walk away in certain situations. But then on the other side of the coin as well, if you feel like you haven't been resilient, or you've made a mistake, or you ate the 12 cookies and drank the glass of milk, you can get back to
absolutely
values that are important to you, or start over and start building resilience again. I think, that's super strong for us as well.
Absolutely.
Everyone at some point is not going to be as resilient as they want to. So then you have that guilt rolling through your mind. And so you just, at that point, got to be a tardigrade, and survive 30 days without cookies and milk.
What's crazy is they look like a full-grown manatee.
A manatee,
They look like a manatee, just like micro size.
Yeah, which is cool to me. Back to your comparison thing, Lord, I'm running a rabbit trail. But the tardigrade doesn't compare itself to the manatee.
Right.
Which could lead to all kinds of, I'm not as big as the manatee, so I can't do that. No, it just says, this is who I am. This is my identity. My purpose is to be resilient in any environment. That's who I am.
That's who he is.
And I think that's so strong for our businesses today.
Yeah.
For, our churches today. Our churches are so important to the success of our world.
Absolutely.
Our families are the core of everything.
Yep.
But we see a lack of resilience, and that was our heartbeat today, to encourage you to take on resilience in every environment. And then I'll let you wrap it up, but back to the Haggai principle, across the board, government, the priest role,
and then
the family role. He covers everything.
He covers it
with
all.
The key for us to be able to thrive in a hostile environment.
Yep. So he says those three things, and that would be what we would close with today, is the word of the Lord in your life is absolutely the most important. So whenever the word of the Lord comes to you, it's saying, be strong. So that's what we're going to encourage you with today, is be strong and do the work. If you're a parent, if you're a mom, and you're feeling guilty because you see mom guilt is a real thing, okay? My wife battles that. It is a real thing. So whenever you pull up at the drop-off line and everybody else's kids are getting out and they're dressed perfectly, their hair is like impeccable, and then your kids, you're just lucky if they have pants on. You're like, I just
or it's uniform day, which just happened to me. Or it was a free day, not uniform day, and mine was in a uniform and not in the free day. So
and they're upset at
wow,
Dad now.
Was I in trouble?
Yeah, and that's what we do, though. And so it's be strong and do the work, do it consistently. And you may be in that phase where you're trying to compare your end, where you are, your start with someone else's finish, and that's just not fair. Don't do that to yourself. Don't beat yourself up.
Brick by brick.
Yep, you just do it brick by brick. Choose the hard right over the easy wrong. Know that God is with you. He is not leaving you, and don't fall off the bandwagon. And if you do fall off the bandwagon, get back up. do the right thing, do the next best step, do the next opportunity. So it's been
be a tardigrade.
Be a tardigrade. I mean, thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and check back in right here on the first Thursday of every month. God bless you. We love you so much.